Hello and thanks for joining me. Let's chat for a few minutes about Chasing Zeus, A Journey Through Greece in the Footsteps of a God by Tom Stone, which is the most recent book that I finished. And as usual, following this chat, I will chat a bit about what my current read is, as well as what my planned next read is going to be. But now is the time to chat Chasing Zeus, A Journey Through Greece in the Footsteps of a God by Tom Stone. This is a work of nonfiction and was originally published in 2008. I read the second edition, which was published in 2014, and I did read this electronically. So I put this on my priority reading list for 2018 because I was interested to read some books this year concerning foundational beliefs or foundational myths of different cultures around the world. So, of course, Zeus, the primary god of ancient Greece, sprung to mind, and so I had never really read a biography of Zeus, and so this was supposed to be part travelogue and part biography of Zeus, so I thought I would, choose this one. So, and it turned out to be fairly interesting. It was very general, a little more general than I had planned, and a little less travelogue-y than I had planned. But what Tom Stone and his wife did is they went to Greece and they, explored sort of the different areas in Greece, different places in Greece where Zeus had momentous acts or momentous things happened in the life of Zeus. So Zeus had a very long run as a very powerful god, and then came to kind of an end, kind of a sad end, actually, around the year 300 or so. If I don't remember the exact date, but I'll chat a bit about that here in a bit. So one thing that the author points out at the very beginning of the book is that there are multiple versions of the Zeus stories, as there are multiple versions of almost all of the mythological characters of ancient Greece, because they didn't just spring out of nowhere as some sort of capital T truth, but they evolved over time. And so the author really does a really good job, actually, of showing us this evolution of Zeus from his very beginnings on the Russian steppes, what's now Russia, the steppes of Asia, where this culture originated, where the original sort of sky god, where Zeus sort of originated as a sky god. And then this culture is called the Proto-Indo-European culture, and it sent out migrants all over Europe, and that was sort of, they all spoke a similar language called the Indo-European language, and so that language wound up spreading all over Europe and large parts of Asia. And so I chatted that book that really went into that really well, called The Horse, the Wheel, and Language. I believe it's by David W. Anthony. I will link the chat to that video down below, but because it linked in very well to this early beginnings of Zeus, where these people then migrated to what is now Greece, and they brought this god with them. So I thought what I would do is, the way the book is structured is it is in 4 different parts, and so I thought I would just go through each of the parts, because each of the 4 parts sort of takes us on a journey, really, through the life of Zeus, from his very earliest beginnings, then to sort of the end of his reign as a powerful deity. So the first part is called Advent. And so this part does talk about these Indo-European speaking peoples. So they're not really a racial group or even a cultural or ethnic group, but it is a linguistic group. It's about all that's known about them. So there's not a lot known about them as far as details go. We can kind of, not me, but scientists and archaeologists and linguists and anthropologists can make sort of some generalizations about what their culture was like based on the root languages that we've all inherited. If you are a speaker of one of the European languages, there's only very few exceptions. I think Finnish is one. And I think there's a couple of more. But if you're speaking English, then you are also speaking an Indo-European language, as you are if you are speaking Greek, is also an Indo-European language. So I think that part's kind of really interesting. But Zeus had his beginnings as a sky god in this area of the steppes of what is now Russia, and then these people migrated to Greece. Well, there were already people living in Greece at the time. and they had their own sets of gods. But they were very matriarchal. They were very female sort of based. Their main deity was female. This is the deity that you see sometimes these statues of. It's the little idol is usually very fat. Really big-breasted, fat. Female, and I think sometimes she's holding snakes or something. But anyway, these Proto-Greeks, I'll call them. I don't think that's what he calls them in the book, but they're not what we consider classical Greeks yet. They're these people that are coming in and interacting with a culture that's already there. Well, there's actually a major civilization at the time called the Minoans, which is discussed really in part 2. The Minoan civilization was a very highly developed civilization. It was centered in Crete, but it had as its main deity this female goddess, and but part of that story, if I remember right, was there's this labyrinth underneath Crete, underneath the capital of Crete or something, and this goddess has some sort of divine child down there, or sometimes I think it's portrayed as a young man. Well, of course, this was very easy for these Indo-European speaking people to adapt their sky god Zeus to be this divine child. But still, the main religion was this matriarchal goddess, this sort of fertility, I guess, goddess. So Zeus sort of had took a backseat to this person, this goddess, and was, I guess, seen kind of as her child, right? Because of this myth that the Minoans already had. Well, we're talking around the years 1800 BC. So a very long time ago. Then around 1600 BC, I don't remember the exact date, but there was this volcano on Crete called Santorini, and it exploded. It is considered to be, thought to be one of the biggest volcanic eruptions in recorded times, because it was recorded, and we can also see the evidence of it, physical evidence of it today. But this volcano eruption was so violent, and the ensuing tsunamis and things were so violent, it disrupted the whole region for years. And then ultimately the Greek, I'll call them Greek, these Proto-European speaking peoples that were in Greece now, they eventually took over Crete. They took over they were supplanted, I guess you could say, the Minoan civilization. And when all of this sort of shook out again, we enter really part 3 of the book, and that is the Mycenaean civilization. Oh, I wanted to mention something because I think it's so cool about time. The 1600 something when the volcano erupted, I think it's really cool to think about how long ago that was, and then put that into context to something that's even older. This was in 1600 BC, so this was, 2,000 years back for us would take us back to the year 0, and then another 1,600 years back would take us to this eruption, the Minoan civilization, and then 1,000 years before that was when the pyramids were built. I just think that this is why I love history. I just think that's so cool to think about. That's just a little aside, but the pyramids in Egypt were already 1,000 years old when this volcano erupted in the Minoan civilization. I think that's so awesome. Anyway, back to the Mycenaeans. So the Mycenaeans then, they were a really an advanced Bronze Age civilization that sort of had their flowering after the Minoan civilization, after this volcanic eruption sort of plays itself out, and the region gets back on its feet again. Then the Mycenaean civilization, they're a warrior-based culture. This is the civilization of Troy, the Trojan War. So warrior-based, and Zeus. By this time, Zeus has become, Zeus has been evolving. The religion, or the I guess you could say religion, the sort of divinity of the region was of Greece, the Greek region, was slowly becoming, away from this matriarchal system that had been indigenous to the area, and more into the patriarchal. Zeus, sort of powerful, an all-powerful, male god, as opposed to the all-powerful female god that had existed before. So, the Mycenaean civilizations, or warrior civilization, So Zeus has evolved by this time into being really just this all-powerful, god. Now, I haven't really gone into all the details of how he was born. One thing that was interesting, though, back when he was born, if I remember the story right, I didn't really realize this, but his mother, he got raised, something happened with his mom, and he got raised by a goat. And the goat became apparently the constellation Capricorn. I wish I had looked that up again before I did this chat, because that would have been cool to talk about. But I think that's cool, right? Because Athena sprung from his forehead, and the evolution of Zeus from this early Proto-Indo-European speaking people and the Minoan civilization with the goddess, the earth goddess Gaia, the way that the story evolved and how it evolved from this indigenous sort of divinity, and they managed to meld the two. And the different gods that we know now were all born. Hera, Zeus's wife. There's a lot of details like that in the book. Not overly so, though. Very general and very readable. This did not take me long to get through it all. It's really just kind of a survey of Zeus's life. But, so anyway, back to part 4. I'm going to run out of time if I'm not careful. Part 4 is actually the Holy Ghost. This is kind of concerns the classical era of Greece that I'm most familiar with. The sort of the golden age of Greece, when it was sort of at the height of its powers as far as cultural democracy had existed at this time. Then, it wasn't too long that had a relatively short window for what we consider, the golden age, and then the Roman Empire comes, and then followed that by Christianity. Zeus starts to lose power, with basically the beginning of the end for the ancient Greek civilization, which was when it was supplanted by Rome, and then later supplanted again by Christianity. And Zeus sort of has his end. There was a big giant statue of Zeus created at the Temple of Olympia. Zeus is 4 stories tall and sitting in a chair. That statue was eventually dismantled and taken to Constantinople, where it's set in storage. I think it did go on display. A government official put it on display. And this author makes the claim in the book that it became the pattern for the Christ Pantocrator, which is in Eastern Orthodox is a sort of iconic figure of Christ that copies this very famous statue of Zeus. But the statue was ultimately destroyed and has been lost to history. So, one thing I'll say about the book, as more I had, when I first started reading about ancient Greece, I had this very idealized version of ancient Greece, and the more I read about it, that's sort of gone by the wayside. Zeus is a pretty unpleasant character, very rapey. He's not a very nice guy. I think the myths are fascinating, but he is not he is, he's got some issues, but I'll leave it at that because I'm going to run out of time. I want to chat a bit about what I'm currently reading, which is The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery. This was recommended by Lillian, a frequent contributor to my channel, and then seconded by Debbie, who is also a regular contributor to my channel. So thank you both for recommending this book. I am enjoying it immensely. I am more than halfway through, so I should be finished with it soon. It concerns a young 12-year-old girl. This is in Paris, and also a sort of middle-aged concierge of her building. They sort of live lives of outsiders in this building of wealthy people. So there'll be more to come on that when I get the chat done. Then my next read, I'm planning on reading H Plus Incorporated by Gary Dejean. This is a transhuman sort of cyberpunk sci-fi. I like reading these books periodically about transhumanism because it's an area that I like to sort of explore in my mind about, our future evolution. So that will be coming up following The Elegance of the Hedgehog. So until next time, take care. Bye.